Hello. Hello.
Hey, everybody. Everybody.
Hey, everybody. It almost looks like we're on a split screen. There's a line
weird.
in the middle.
I'm joining you from Phoenix, and Brian is.
Is it? Yeah.
What?
Well, I was over there before because my head blocked that window.
Giant head. Look, I can see this.
We're at Menopause the Musical.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I've got matching fan. Menopause.
Hey, Pedro, if you're still there.
Hey.
We got 2 people, 2 thumbs up. Looking good.
Whoa. We have 3 people. Whoa, man.
Wow.
I got my ice pack. I got my hat on so the light doesn't hurt my eyeballs.
I'm just curious. Oh, no.
No,
Never mind.
We're in the dark.
Never mind. That's bad.
In the dark.
Ascension Ranch. Hello.
Hi, Eric and Patricia. Does she go by Pat or Patricia?
And I got my drink and snacks. Omega Royal. I recognize that from comments in the past, I think.
We already had our dinner, so I don't have any
Melinda,
snacks.
Dad.
Hello.
Yeah, I forgot. It's Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
Your hair on your legs is scratching me. I don't like it.
Wow. Patricia.
Okay. Eric and Patricia. When was the last time you shaved your legs? You might want to give them another trim. It's pokey.
Maybe it's
It probably is mine.
We're gonna look red tonight. I feel like we're gonna look red. Is it your shirt?
I don't think my shirt is making us look red.
We look red.
We're sitting on a red chair, and we have red placemats. Maybe it's my jacket over there. Or the fact that I've been in the sun for every day for the last 3 years. It's pretty warm today. It's going to be 97 tomorrow. What? This is my ice pack, which, where'd we get this? Somebody left it. We've got like 100 of these that people have left. We've got a whole, the shed is full of the
a bunch of them.
Ice packs. And then Jared left some last time he was here. I don't know. Oh, what are we talking about tonight, or is it too soon? Because I have the occasional hot flash.
It's a little. I mean,
it's warm.
It's warm outside today for sure. We have the air conditioner on in here, but not super cold, so it's a little warm.
I just take these every now and then. If I get hot, I put them right here, and it helps me. Yeah, that's right.
What were you going to say about something out there? You've read on the TV. Oh, you're read on the TV, but not the computer. Huh. I'm just looking at it. We look a little red to me on our screen here, so 80 here today.
Oh, he's in the high desert.
What were we? 92?
93.
92 was on my weather app, but yeah, I saw 93 on the thermometer
tomorrow,
at some point today. I don't even know if I caught the highest of it. Did
tomorrow,
you see it?
97.
Did you ever look at it? It could have gotten higher for all I know. I'm not sure.
The one time I looked at it was 93.
But I saw it at 93. It was pretty warm today.
That was the most I saw.
We've had the air on since pretty early.
Everybody might be out partying or something since we never go out on Cinco de Mayo.
Nah.
We don't really go out that much, especially since the pandemic. Or are we just gonna?
Well, I was waiting to see who will show up, but I don't want to start too much too early. Did it take some time to adjust to the heat? Well,
we've lived in Phoenix for 25 years.
This is actually cool for us. This is cooling off.
At least it cools off at night.
Yeah,
here.
we both lived in the Phoenix area for around 20 years. So
thank you, Omega Royal.
We were in Chandler for the last about 17 or so. Hey, Mom. For about the last 17 or so before we came here. So yeah, we're used to actually much hotter. So it's been a nice break, actually, especially at night. It's much nicer at night.
When I first moved to Phoenix, it was 120 degrees on the day I got there, and then the next day was 126 degrees.
I moved here also in like May or June. I guess it was
July for me,
and it was pretty warm. But I mean, yeah, it's hot, but I liked the heat ever since I got here. So
I keep a squirt bottle around, and if you squirt yourself in the face with water and your arms and legs, and you stand in front of the fan, that helps me a lot. I did that last year, and the year before that. It gets hot in here because of RV.
Yeah,
it's not energy efficient. It's bad.
So what? Again, what were you saying?
No idea.
Was it about something out there?
Nope. I don't know.
You probably saw a squirrel or something.
I don't know. Sorry.
So we do have something to talk about tonight.
Oh, I know what it was.
Oh gosh, of course. Are you serious?
I just happen to be glancing over there. I just look out there, but I just was saying that I feel brain dead for some reason. I've been working so hard. Don't laugh. I've been working hard, right?
So hey Jim.
Hey Jim.
And Jessica.
And Jessica.
What's up? Not too much. Same old.
I have
pretty warm today.
Working hard except for
so Ascension Ranch says it gets to 100 here at the most. We get to 105, 107 maybe, which again for us is kind of mild compared to Phoenix. So it's not that bad, and it cools off at night even when it does get that hot, so it's not too bad.
We're doing good.
Let's see. So
is today
how y'all been? We're good.
I thought that was tomorrow.
I saw the kind of the post for tomorrow's live, but I didn't actually know what day was the actual birthday. So, but yes, happy birthday, Jessica. whatever day it is. Jim, it's been a while. Yeah. Ascension Ranch, how is the building? We're going to get into it. The building's actually going well. You know, as you can see from the, I think it's what I made the picture. Yeah, when I made the picture for this live and for the post that I made for the live, you could see that all the second course, the final course for us of tires is done. So they're all filled and they've got rebar coming up through them, which is what we wanted to get. So
are you starting?
So that's going well. I guess we're going to start getting into it. It's 5 after. We're going to get into our discussion for the night. So our discussion for the night came up yesterday. So it's still pretty fresh, but I've been thinking about it, and I've talked to 1 or 2 people about it a little bit. So I have some thoughts, but I'm curious what some other people's thoughts are out there. So here's what we have found out. I went to Sierra Vista yesterday, to town, and you two can. So someone's tamping. I went to Sierra Vista, and I went to talk to the truss people. So that's where Southwest Truss is. That's where Bill got his trusses. I think Warren also got some there. His haven't been delivered yet, but anyway, that company's been recommended by several people. It was recommended to us by, I think, the folks at the Canelo Project, which is where we learned kind of a little bit of straw bale stuff. So I went down there yesterday. I've known I was going to go there for a while, but I wasn't ready, and I'm still not ready to order them, but I wanted to go down there and kind of meet the guy in person, have a talk with him. I kind of have an idea of what I want because it's very similar to what Bill did across the street here. I'm
confused.
So you're confused?
Hi, Dawn.
Maybe they think Desert Living Homestead is Dawn.
Dawn's. I don't think Dawn's here.
I don't think Dawn's on here, at least not yet.
And I wanted to say thanks to your mom too. Thank you, Shirley.
So So I went to the truss place. Okay, sorry. I went to the truss place. And it was just to have a discussion and kind of tell them that I was kind of getting close to being ready. And so I wanted them to know I was coming, and I wanted to get an idea of kind of what timeline we'd be talking about and maybe what price we'd be talking about. And, I went in there expecting, some crazy prices because of what lumber's been doing. And I had an idea on the timeline, or at least I thought I did, because, other people have gotten from there, and it hasn't been all that long since they did. And I guess it's been a little while, but I didn't realize that things had changed. I mean, I know lumber is doing weird things, but I thought it was more about the money than about the timeline, really. So the bad news that we got is that they're 10 to 12 weeks out on trusses. So unfortunately, that means even if I were to order them right now, that's kind of throwing us into monsoon season already, just for when the trusses get delivered, let alone putting them up and putting sheathing on top of them and a roof on top of that. So that's a little scary. So the issue is, and what I'm feel free to throw some opinions out. I'll start talking about kind of the thoughts I've had since I found this out yesterday. But feel free to throw some opinions out there. But the way I see it, lumber is up about 200%. It depends on who you talk to. I mean, yeah, it could be anywhere from, it could be up to, I've heard up to 300 or 400.
And it could keep going up.
And it could get worse. It could get better. It could get worse. No one really knows. People have some thoughts on what they think will happen, but no one really knows at this point, I don't think. So our options at this point, as I see them, are, number one, we could just push ahead and say, we're just going to keep going. We're going to put up our walls. We're going to order the trusses. Whenever they come, they come. And if we get rain in the meantime, we will do our best to cover until we can put those trusses up. So that's option one. Option two is to push ahead with the walls and wait on the trusses. I guess now that I think about it, I'm not sure whether that option makes a whole lot of sense, but, there's Bill. Bill and Yvonne.
Hi, Bill.
They initially told me 6 weeks for trusses, end up delivering them in 3. Interesting. He did tell me it could be faster if anybody canceled. But, okay, that's interesting to know, though.
So what, could you go ahead and start with the sill plate anyway?
Yes.
Or
I could
do that?
I could, but the question really is about after that. Now, anytime you start putting wood down, that could get wet, that could warp, that could. So
right,
if I were going to pause, I would pause everything at this point. Basically, I would just wait, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, option one: push forward, cross your fingers, right, and hope it comes earlier. Hope that maybe the rain holds off a little longer, or hope that if you do get rain, I can cover them up and be all right. But unfortunately, I actually don't even have an idea on price yet because I didn't give him full measurements and all that stuff. Now, I did call him back today. He wasn't available, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet. I wanted him to give me a ballpark. But even they said, the moment I walked in the door, they said, keep in mind, the first thing they said was, we're 10 to 12 weeks out. And they also said, any quote we give you, we won't be able to honor 10 to 12 weeks out. So they're literally telling you that the quote is almost meaningless, I guess. So that was interesting.
That's a little hard to swallow.
So, yeah. So anyway, option one, push ahead, cross your fingers. Option two, push ahead with the walls and then just do your best to cover them up and wait and say, we're not going to put the roof on until after the monsoon. So shoot for, try and time the trusses for, maybe October or something like that. But even if you did that, you still then have winter rains potential. So I'm not crazy about that. Option three, pause everything and wait till after monsoon. But again, you've still got winter rains, which are kind of a wild card, right? I mean, we could get a decent amount of rain in October, November, December. We do get winter rains. It's hit miss. It's hard to predict. But so even if we paused everything and said, we're not going to make a move until after monsoon, we'd still have, really, unless you're going to wait until next, March or whatever, when that dry season again, that is more of a known dry season. There's still the potential for rain, so there's still rolling the dice. There's still another
option, though.
Yeah, I'm not done yet, but
he's kind of long-winded.
Zig Ziglar, if you wait for all the lights to be green before you pull on the driveway, you'll never leave home. Push forward. All right.
You would think building would slow
Yeah,
down,
but it hasn't. I mean, so
it's not showing any signs.
there are a
of
couple
slowing
other.
down.
So yes, I could just push forward, and that is definitely an option, and we could just deal with it, right? But there are a couple other possibilities, and the question is really going to come down to we kind of have to look at each of these possibilities and assess their timeline and their cost, right? So I have to find out obviously what these trusses cost. I kind of know the timeline now, or at least a ballpark timeline. Another option, which Bill has suggested in the past, and I have begun to look into, is TJIs, or they go by a couple of different acronyms depending on who you talk to, but basically an engineered wood I-beam, basically. So right, instead of trusses, you're just making a big I-beam out of wood. I spoke to someone today. So I went into Lowe's and Home Depot. I'm not sure who out there, if anybody out there has done any research on these, but I walked into Lowe's and Home Depot. I was down, on that same trip down to the truss place. After I was done at the truss place, I went over to the Lowe's and Home Depot, and I walked to each of their pro desks, which is where Lowe's and Home Depot don't actually make these things. They buy them from someone else who has engineered them, and they just sell them. They're just the middleman, really, right? So I walked into Home Depot first, and I told them what I was doing, and I had a not great experience with the lady there. So I don't know whether she was having a bad day or she had a problem with me or what, but she was not very helpful. So number one, she, I told her I was building straw bale, and she had a lot of opinions about straw bale that I did not share or care to hear. So there was that. And then when I asked her about some of the, or how to kind of go forward with any sort of engineered wood I-beam, she flat out said, all we do is sell them. I don't sit here all day and figure out how to build them or something like that. So before she got to that point, she used the word engineer several times, and basically told me my house was going to fall down, and
that it should have architecture.
I needed architect. I needed all kinds of things to be able to tell her what kind of I-beams I needed. So she was not very helpful. So I said thank you and walked away fairly quickly. So that conversation didn't last very long. I then went to Lowe's and tried to have that same conversation at their pro desk. They also sell them. But it's the same deal. But I went into that conversation a little differently, and they received me a little differently, which was nice. So a little better. So I talked to a guy at the pro desk and told him kind of the same spiel, except I said, I went in saying, listen, I don't know much about these. I was just looking at trusses, and I've got some issues. So I had heard of these as a potential alternative. What can you tell? See, he says, ask for Brett. I've dealt with Jerry at Lowe's a few times, and this is who I dealt with yesterday, and I dealt with him when I bought my stuff for the shed. So, but I kind of even went in saying, I said, I don't think you guys actually make these. You buy them from somebody else, right? And you probably don't really deal with the specifications of them. You probably just take some information from me, send it on to somebody else, and they give you back. And he said, yeah. So I said, how can I find out some information? So he took out his card, turned it over, and wrote on the back of it the name of I've had decent luck with Jerry. So far, I've just dealt with him for the shed and now for this. So he wrote the name of an engineer and the company. Now I know that is the company that Lowe's buys them from. It happens to be in Phoenix. It's a place called Capital Lumber. So there's an engineer there. So I called up and asked to speak to him. And I told him the spiel. And I started it out with, hey, I'm in Cochise. I'm building on my own. I don't have an engineer. I don't have architectural plans, all this stuff. But I said, here's what I'm doing. I was thinking about buying trusses. There's some issues. I was thinking about this as an alternative. What can you tell me? And he said, okay, what size of building are you talking about? What's kind of the layout? How's your roof going to look? So I told him the basics, and he punched some things into a computer, which I'm sure is mostly what they do, right? And he told me some of the things that, some of the possibilities, so there's a couple possibilities, because just like with lumber, you can make it wider and potentially shorter if you make it wider, or you can make it a little narrower and make it taller, and it'll support more by doing those things, right? So he gave me like two options of sizes, basically of a height and a width. I'm not sure what the right terms are for these I-beam things, but he gave me two possibilities that would basically span the 24 feet-ish that I'm looking for, right? And but he doesn't do any pricing. So Lowe's is their middleman. Lowe's is the middleman for that. So he basically said, when we were done, So that gave me the confidence that it could be done, right? And it was, doable stuff. But I had to then, to get a price, I actually have to kind of have the conversation I had with him. I have to do it through Lowe's. I have to go to Lowe's, give them some basics. They send it off to him. He'll come back kind of like he just did to me, and they'll price it. So I still don't know the number, but I know it's doable. And I had he told me some things about I-beams that I didn't know. So about these manufactured I-beams.
Hold up. I just looked this way. It's when Brian starts talking and he starts to ramble. I start to get tired.
Do you want me to let you run the whole thing?
No, I don't want. I don't know what's going on.
Exactly. So that's why I'm talking.
I'm just saying that I don't. I'm just saying that I look tired because I get sleepy.
I bore her, is what she's saying. But our life and what I have to do to build us a house bores her.
I don't mean to.
So,
I'm old. That's why I'm tired. I look tired because he's 9 years younger than me.
So let's see what Bill says. I went to the Pro Desk at Home Depot, gave them the dimensions I wanted. See, that's the problem. I didn't know the dimensions I wanted. I didn't know anything, really. And they gave me a price within 10 minutes. Stay clear of that lady. Yes, she was in a bad mood, and she looked like she might potentially be always in a bad mood. So you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, she was terrible.
Crabby lady.
Now, Bill, when you say you gave them the dimensions you wanted, I assume you knew kind of what size I-beam you wanted, not the dimensions of the house, because I didn't know what I wanted, and that was kind of the problem with her. Now, she might have been crabby no matter what from the looks of her, but yeah, I didn't know what to tell her.
Okay, where were you in your
story? Back to the story. That manufactured wood I-beams are a possible solution, but I don't know the price yet. So we've got go forward with trusses. I still don't know the price. I kind of know the time frame potentially. Manufactured wood I-beams. I actually don't know the time frame on those either. It could be just as bad, and I don't know the price yet. But I can take some steps to find out.
I gave him the link.
Yeah, you knew the length and the height. Okay. So I now have an idea after talking to that engineer. I now have an idea of the length and the height that I would want. The other option, which is a little crazy, but is almost a little comforting, actually, in some ways. What does Crabby look like? You'd know it. You'd know it if you saw this lady. If you walked up to this lady, you wouldn't be surprised by the way she talked.
What color is her hair? Brown.
Brown or red, maybe? Brown? I don't know.
She was mean. He's not good at describing.
Anyway, so the final option, which is a little crazy, but also, like I said, a little
comforting.
Yeah, that's
late 50s.
Bill's got her.
Skinny.
So the last option is to build it much like I built the carport. To build, and I guess you'd call that, I don't know if the right term is timber frame or post and beam or something like that, but essentially, what I said to Pam was, after I found out about these things, I said, well, I was racking just on the drive home. I was like, what can I do? How can I build these myself? And the only way I know to build these myself is to use just regular lumber. But to span that length with regular lumber, you've got to put a post in the middle like I did in the carport, or multiple posts, right? So I was thinking about it. And yeah, if I went with a pretty thick rafter, a 2x10 or whatever, I could span half the distance with one and half the distance with the other. I just need a post in the room. So I thought about that a little bit, and I actually talked to my neighbor about it today, my neighbor Doug, and he made a good point. He said, which I hadn't even thought of, which I don't know, I guess I just hadn't processed all this yet, but essentially I was still in the mindset, even when I said build it like the carport and put a post in the middle, I was still thinking, do the walls first out of straw bale. It's still load-bearing straw bale. I'm just putting a post in the middle for a middle portion for the roof weight to sit on, or for the rafters kind of to sit on. But I wasn't thinking about changing the whole logic of the structure to become sort of more post and beam or timber frame or whatever you want to call it, or stick frame with the straw just being infill. So anyway, that is the last option. I built a structure that is much like the carport here. I actually could build it a few modifications. I wouldn't have as many internal posts as I did for the carport, but so I could limit the internal posts, but there would be a few. But I could do the posts on the outside even, and basically I could build that whole outside structure and the roof before I ever even think about putting a wall, a straw bale wall.
I have one question.
And then it essentially is it is not load bearing anymore. Yes, Bill did suggest that. So I thought when I said this, Bill might actually be on board with this idea. This is one of the ideas.
So Brian, is it gonna? Are you gonna make it big enough to where it's like a porch? I mean, we can still do a porch in there too. Can you make it
in there? You mean outside?
Well,
that's kind of a separate issue. I don't know why those two.
How do you add a porch on later?
The same way you would any other. Nothing changes in that sense, I don't believe.
Oh.
So yes, we can still do a porch outside.
Okay. Can I have a porch swing?
Oh gosh. Okay, we're getting off track. So yes, Bill did suggest this. Now I don't know if this is exactly what he had in mind, but you now are getting a sense of what I'm talking about. I mean, if any of you have seen the carport or the videos for the carport, I essentially could build a structure that had posts all around the outside and a few in the middle, which is kind of one of the drawbacks of this thing, right? That there'd be a post kind of inside the building or posts inside the building. Now you could do your best to build them into close to a wall or part of a wall or whatever, but so maybe it's not that bad. But that's the other option. And what I like about it, I like a few things about it. I like that I've built this kind of a structure now twice. I did a shed and I did a carport. The carport was more the posts on the outside, but the shed, I've done the rafters of the roof and everything, and I've put the metal on top of that multiple times now. So I feel somewhat comfortable with it. Number two, it's all within my control, right? I control when I get the lumber, how I put it together. I don't rely on anybody else to build something for me. So I can control the time frame within reason. I gotta get the lumber and everything.
I like that option.
Number three,
we can move forward now.
Which the neighbor just pointed out, which again, like I said, I hadn't really processed it all the way through, but that allows me to actually build the roof first. You know, I put the posts up, I put the roof on it, just like the carport. And the walls really don't come until afterwards. The beauty of that is the walls are then protected from the weather, at least largely, right? So yes, Bill, your last comment, very accurate. Is that kind of what you meant? And if you had it to do over again, I mean, you kind of told me that, but would you do it that way? Did you have that many problems with the straw bale, or did you just decide when you had to add the additional stuff at the end, did you just kind of decide, well, if I had to add all this stuff anyway, why wouldn't I have just framed it? Is that kind of what you meant? It's hard to say because we didn't have a long conversation about why you said, if you had to do over again, but I was curious. But anyway, that's another option. There are a lot of things I like about it. There is one thing that is not great about it, which is that aesthetic of a pole in the middle of the room, right? But you could do things to kind of incorporate that into the room, or, you put something up against it, or something that you would have had to walk around anyway. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. And then if there's a lot of other benefits to it, like I just listed, that definitely was not our intent from day one, but maybe it's not that big of a deal.
Your situation.
It wasn't that I had a lot of problems. It's just I figured for your situation might be a better method. Absolutely. It may be. So anyway, that's an option. Now, but of all these three options, again, this just happened yesterday. So I've been thinking about this for about a day now. So for that option, obviously I can control within reason the time frame. Now, some of that wood might be still a little difficult to come by. Maybe I'd have to order some of it because we'd probably be talking about some fairly long, fairly, big 2x something, right? So it might not be as simple as just walking to the store and pointing at them and taking them. So, but within reason, I can control the time frame a good bit more. But I have not priced it out. I've got to price it out. So with all these things, I have to kind of lay them all out and say time frame, price, time frame, price, time frame, price, and other benefits and
might
drawbacks.
Be less, but we're not sure.
I would imagine, again, even though it's still lumber and lumber is crazy, I would guess that because the other things are lumber and they also have labor involved and expertise and people want to make a profit, I would guess that that method would be cheapest, but
Bill says more expensive.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know for sure because, I mean, even though trusses are, involve somebody else making them and they want to make, there's less wood involved in a truss because it is all made out of 2x4s.
But there's labor.
So, but it's all made out of 2x4. So yeah, like I said, I have no idea yet. I haven't written any of this down and tried to figure out how many of each of the thing I would need. So I didn't know how bad the price on basically building the carport and then filling it with straw bale would be. So those are the thoughts. That's just a quick rundown of the thoughts that have been bouncing around in my head now for a day. But I will fully admit, I don't know all of the timelines and prices yet. But given all that information, I mean, hit me with your thoughts or whatever. So they're all doable things. But at this point, we have to kind of weigh all those out with their timeline and price and figure out which makes the most sense. But I gotta say, as weird as it sounds, you know, we never really had this for whatever reason, just for maybe it was finding the Canelo project or whatever, but we've been kind of load-bearing straw bale from day one and haven't really considered anything else. But now that I'm here in the situation I'm in and I've done what I've done, there's something sort of comforting about kind of switching to this kind of post and beam and filling it in. So I don't know. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Century says makes sense.
My eye keeps twitching.
Yeah, so
that's why my eye.
So here's what Bill has to say.
That.
The way they put together those trusses, no one could do it quicker or cheaper. I agree. So they've got it down to a science, and their ability to buy large quantities of lumber gets them a better price. Okay, I was afraid of that. And also, a truss, even though it's strong, it's made out of small wood, but it's engineered in such a way that small wood becomes strong because of all the angles and the webbing and all that stuff. So they're all 2x4s. So even though there's wood there and there's expertise and there's all that stuff, like Bill said, they're sort of assembly line type, and the wood itself is cheaper wood, and they can buy it in large quantities. So maybe the truss will be cheaper. I'll have to find out.
Let's say that the trusses are cheaper.
Yeah.
What would you go with the?
That's a good question. So
what would you do?
So even if it came out that the trusses were cheaper, because of if the timeline is truly as bad as what he told me, and unfortunately the part I can't predict is like Bill said when they quoted him maybe 6 weeks and did it in 3.
It could be less, or it could be more.
2x4s and they do use some 2x6s. Okay, but so the question, a good question to ask is, okay, let's say the trusses are cheaper, but I can't have them until monsoon season. Would I try make the existing cardboard? So I will tell you this: if I were going to go this way, I would change things about the carport. Number one, I learned some things while I was building that I would do differently. And number two, if that were a house, and like I said, I kind of, at least at some point, I have to put posts inside the building. I would do less posts inside the building. I actually
I'm thinking about it.
I actually used several posts.
I'm looking at
kind of within each bay of the carport, right? I used multiple posts, and I did that so I'd have a shorter span. And by having a shorter span between those posts, between the beams that sit on those posts, that allowed me to use a smaller rafter, right? So I did that for a reason. But if I were doing it in a house and I have to put posts inside the house, I obviously then would try to spread those posts out as far as possible. So where if I took the existing carport, it would have, it'd have the posts around the outside, and it would also have 4 posts inside the building.
We could just make walls in between those.
If I build it from scratch, I could do the same size structure with only 2 posts inside the building, because I would span half and just use a bigger rafter, basically.
Is that smaller or bigger than?
It is actually right about the same size.
Okay, but
it's about the same size.
He's also done a heck of a lot of work on this foundation.
Yeah. There's no foundation for the bales. I mean, there are things you could do, I suppose, but I've built this foundation for these bales and everything, so I don't have a problem with kind of doing it again. And like I said, I learned things. There are things that I would do differently. The roof would be done a little differently, partly because I learned something that even if I built another carport, I'd do differently, and partly because I would treat a house a little differently than a carport when it comes to certain things. So for example, the posts, I would want less of them. The roof, I would do a little differently. I did just purlins and a metal roof. I don't know that I'd do that on a house.
What about insulation? Because he was talking about insulation being a problem with that kind of roof, maybe.
Well, what I said was our floor joists are 2x10s and they span 12 feet. So that would be similar to your rafters. Correct. You are correct. I thought potentially to span that 12 feet, which is about what I would be spanning, to go halfway. I think it would be pushing it with a 2x8. I think the rule of thumb, the very loose rule of thumb, is that you can span about 1.5 times the depth of your wood. Now, the thing about it is a 2x8 isn't really 8 inches, because if it was 8 inches, that could be 1.5 times that is 12. You could span 12 feet, but a 2x8 is, I think it's 7.5. At some point, they actually go to a quarter. I think a 2x10 is maybe 9.25 deep, but I think a 2x8 is actually 7.5. But 1.5 times 7.5 is not 12. So it probably would need to be a 2x10. I think you're right, Bill. The thing I brought up about, she's laughing. Again, she hates to hear me talk about the things she's dying for me to build.
I know.
It's funny, right?
I am so sorry. So, I wish I could.
She wants the house, but the second I talk about it, it puts her to sleep.
No, there's a lot of things about myself that I would like to change, and my attention span is the main one.
So, the one issue I brought when I was kind of describing these options to Pam, and she might have asked something similar to what Taylor just asked, which was basically, why don't we just use what we have? Well, again, because I only use 2x6s for the rafters for that, and again, it's because I wasn't spanning very far. I used 2x6s. I said at some point, a 2x6 is only 5.5 inches deep. I said, remember that whatever I put up there, that is all the space we have to insulate, right? Because you can't insulate beyond the rafter. You're now in empty space, right? So you want your rafter to be deep enough to be able to insulate some amount. So I said, yeah, there comes a point where if you get a small enough rafter, now you're not going to have enough insulation. So
is Jim saying he's voting for post and beam?
Are you voting for post and beam, Jim? Is that what you're saying?
Post and beam is the carport thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have trouble with what to label, what the actual difference is when people use the term timber frame or post and beam or stick frame. When I hear post and beam, I don't think, when I hear stick frame, I think studs every 16 inches or whatever, right? And, and a wall is made up of studs and you stand it up. But when I'm just saying words, but when I hear timber frame, or when I hear either timber frame or post and beam, I think more like what I've got with the carport, which are bigger beams that are farther apart and have something filled in between like the straw would be. I don't know if I'm actually technically correct in that thought, but that's what goes through my mind when I hear those terms. So, but yeah, that's where we're at.
Rose by any other name, you know what they're talking about.
So my fear, and you, Bill, may have just confirmed it. My fear was going to be that I would start to feel more comfortable about the idea of post and beam, kind of like the carport. But then when I actually worked out the numbers, I would see that the trusses were actually cheaper.
Hey,
and
Alan.
if that happens, it's going to be it's going to be, well, do I go the cheaper route that maybe I don't like some other things about? But I mean, I would feel confident in it because of those trusses are engineered, they're strong, they're all that stuff. But like I said, there are things about the post and beam, just the comfort level I have with this kind of a structure right now, that actually make me feel better about it. So the question would be, when those prices come out, I'm going to have a tough decision to make. You got great. You're right, Bill. I know.
Yes.
I know. That's the other thing.
If you get stuck.
You said, and you're probably right, even with the trusses, even if the time frame is 10 to 12 weeks, you could make the argument, just push on, right? Don't get stuck. Just push on. The beauty of the post and beam method is that I really can push on, and all of these variables are within my control. Whereas with the trusses, something is taken out of my control. So
I like that idea.
That is the one that kind of a no-brainer says, keep going. When you get to the next step, all you have to do is go buy lumber. All you have to do is, so I can just keep going, and I don't have to worry about anybody else. And I must say, I was already worried, even with the timeline that I was expecting, which was good. I was expecting about 6 weeks for him to say about 6 weeks. Even that timeline was going to be pretty tight for us to get where we need to be. So have you been down? Yes, I was at Southwest Trust yesterday, Bill. I went in and I talked to Jim. He was a super nice guy, by the way. Yeah, he was great. Now they did, which I don't blame them. The admin lady up front, when I walked in the door and said that I wanted to talk to somebody about trusses, she kind of gave me the spiel right off the bat, because I think maybe they've wasted their time with some folks who, after they found out a time frame and a price, ran out the door. So she said, hey, we're 10 to 12 weeks out, and we can't honor prices that far out and everything. So she warned me.
Make a roof out of aircrete.
But after I got beyond that initial, them trying to see if I wanted to run out the door, that if I really wanted to talk,
What is
he was a super nice guy when I sat down with Jim. He was great. He was very helpful, very nice.
Aircrete, what they have a little building.
That's actually Papercrete, I believe, is what they've got. So there's a lot of different cretes.
What Derek is using?
It's not. It's a little almost more like a styrofoam. Imagine if a piece of styrofoam was instead made out of concrete, but they were concrete kind of almost bubbles in a sense.
We already have our straw bale, so we're not going to use that.
Jim's just saying words. Tim's just saying words. Don't pay any attention to him.
Don't be afraid to drop my name.
I definitely, Bill, I'm way ahead of you. I told him that I was there for your trust raising. So we talked about you, and I said I wanted something very similar. I think the only difference really between what I wanted and what you did was you did the deadwood that I don't think I was going to do. But other than that, I said, hey, I kind of want what Bill has, right? So that made the conversation a lot easier. I think I mentioned you at first that you were a neighbor, and I knew you had gotten your trusses there, but it wasn't until a little bit into the conversation that I told him kind of how close of a neighbor you actually are, right across the street, and that I was there when we put the trusses up. So that definitely helped scrap the straw bales. So anyway, that's where we're at. So I just wanted to share with everybody the thought process that has happened now I'm about 24 hours, into getting this news. I didn't expect it.
What you can do with the bales you want me.
So it's going to be interesting. Bill probably is right that the number when it comes to the trusses might actually be better, but I'm actually starting to lean towards maybe more of a comfort level with the post and beam construction. So, and this is what I do, and this is what I hate that I do, right? When I have all these options thrown at me, I have a hard time making a choice. So I am going to pick one. I am going to go forward, and I'm going to try and make the driving factor here be to keep going, right? Of all those options I laid out, the ones that say put everything on hold, I don't like, right? Because I know what happens when I do that, right? So I am going to try and keep going, whether it means going forward with trusses and just kind of crossing my fingers or whatever. Have you priced a 2x10 by 12? I have not. I have not priced any lumber yet. So
$100.
I should have done that today, but I spent some time, like I said, I spent some time on the phone with the engineer, with that engineer today.
You're marching.
So Jim, I haven't priced anything. So I don't know yet what anything's going to be.
We'll take Jim's trailer, Jim's new trailer. If you
the good news is, and this I mentioned this when I was, when I was talking to the neighbor Doug. The good news is everything we've done so far is still good, right? It's not wasted, it's not wrong, which is always my biggest fear in any project, right? Is that I'm going to go some distance down a path, right, and find out halfway down that path that I didn't want to go down that path at all, and I want to scrap everything. That's what I fear.
What does that mean?
So
left arm and right leg.
Marching?
Oh. Oh, I see.
So the good news is what we've done so far is still solid, and we still need, even if we change up the method, right? We still need that base for those bales. So we're still good.
It's all about that.
So that's good news. But so after having this conversation, after talking through my own head and having this conversation and getting a little bit of feedback, I'm actually kind of, I'm between two options right now. And the one is push forward with trusses and kind of cross your fingers and deal with whatever consequences of the weather happen. And number two is push forward. Notice these are both push forward, which is good. Number two is push forward and put all those variables kind of in my hands and build in a way that I can do on my own, right? With all my own, that I don't have to rely on any other person to make a part of this thing for me. Obviously, I still have to get metal at some point, but I've dealt with the metal folks several times. It's not that long of a process. So anyway, price of lumber, left arm and right leg. Okay. So that's now I'm settling into kind of those two options. And again, the biggest factor I'm trying to keep in mind is keep going. I don't want to stop. So those both allow me to keep going. But I'm having a hard time. I got to say, I'm having a hard time kind of between those two, especially if I think I have a comfort level with the post and beam. But if the truss comes out actually cheaper, then it'll be a really tough decision.
I doubt
if the post and beam came out cheaper, it'd be kind of a no-brainer. I'd say, well, I'm more confident with it, and it's cheaper. It's a winner.
Jim.
But I do need a little bit more time to kind of assess these two. But that's where I'm at a day into this process of trying to think this through. So that was my day yesterday. Of course, the second he said 10 to 12 weeks, my heart just sank and I didn't know where to go from there. But we just had the conversation. I pretended that was fine, even though it wasn't. But I've, after a day, it's kind of settled in. I'm okay with it. I now have, I think, a couple of options that I've got to try and choose between. So I have to do a little bit of pricing to make that an informed decision, right? But to tell you the truth, I'd be okay with both of them, I suppose. There are things I like and things I don't like about each one. So that's where we're at. If we did change up like that and went kind of this post and beam method, another thing I wanted to discuss, if you can picture that, if you can try and picture that. So let's say take the bales kind of out of the equation, and let's say I build this carport-like structure that has posts around the outside of it and a couple of posts inside, right, in the living space, but the others are around the edges, so it's kind of like they're not there in terms of aesthetics, right? So let's say there's 2 posts. If I do it the way I think I can do it to span the distances I need to span, let's say there's now 2 posts. Let's say they're 4x6s, like my carport. There's 2 4x6s inside the house, right? So the one thing I thought of right away for one of those posts, we already have our house kind of broken up into kind of 2 halves. One half is the living and kitchen area, and it's open. And the other half is 2 rooms, which will actually have walls around them. Those are the only walls in the place, but a bedroom and a bathroom. The one thing I thought of right off of the bat was, okay, I can hide one of those posts by basically just making the bedroom wall come out to that post and then down. That post kind of is the corner of that bedroom wall. Now it's like that post doesn't really exist, right? In terms of aesthetics or anything. It's not like I'm going to walk into it. It's not out in the middle of the room. So that's one gone, right? And the other one does end up out in that open space between the kitchen and so I've been thinking between the kitchen and the living room, I've been thinking of ways to sort of make that one not so intrusive. And what I've come up with so far is we had an idea of laying out when it comes to like furniture and things. We were going to, even though that's an open space between the kitchen and the living room, we were going to put our dining room table, which happens to be, we brought it from our house. It's actually a bar table. It's kind of tall. It's like a little bar. We were going to kind of place it in between those 2 rooms, sort of to separate them, and also like to act as an island. It'll be our dinner table. It's an island. It's actually got some cabinet. You can store things in it and all that stuff. When we're not eating at it, Pam could use it. If there weren't enough counter space, she could use it like an island. She could prepare things on it, whatever.
$29 for one.
So, but Bill's looking stuff up right now.
Sweet.
Okay. So,
Jim was saying karaoke.
So.
You won't do it on this channel.
Not here.
Simply Pam.
Those of you who really want to see us karaoke, we'll either have to catch us on Pam's or we'll have to come out to karaoke with us when those days return. So
he's afraid.
Which you won't be sorry you did, by the way. But what I was thinking about to sort of hide that post, or at least make it less intrusive, was we were already thinking of putting a table in between those 2 rooms. And I thought if you situated that table kind of up against that post, in a sense, the table would have been the obstruction already anyway. So if you get that kind of up against that post, maybe the post doesn't become so intrusive anymore. So I've already been thinking about ways that I can sort of aesthetically and functionally kind of make those posts not so intrusive. So I'm not. I
don't mind a post.
I don't have that much of a problem with it.
I'll make a coat rack out of it.
Of course, from day one when we were thinking about the house, after one of our first kind of big steps toward the house was after we made the carport, we said, hey, what if it looked like this, right? Or what if it was this size? Obviously, from that day, the idea was, well, we wouldn't want these posts inside, right? So that's where trusses came in or whatever. So this wasn't our intent from the beginning, but now that I've thought about it a little bit, I think I can live with it. I think I can make it work. It maybe is not that big of a deal. So that's what I've spent some of the last 24 hours kind of working through in my head. Yes, maybe. When you threw out the price difference, that's gonna get me. But
how many of
I do
those
feel fairly comfortable
go in?
So just as a quick, well, I can tell you. So the house is about the same size as the carport. It might be slightly different, right? But I believe, so if they're 2 feet apart and there's 30 feet to go across there, that'd actually be 16. Posts can be cool. They can actually. Yes, you can actually make them. Yeah. Agreed.
I have plans for it.
So there are 16 just from end to end, and then I think there's 2 extras that kind of hang out further. Rafters, right? On the so let's say 18 rafters. I think there's 16 to go to just cover the 30 feet, and then there's 2 extras to give you overhang, right?
Yeah.
So let's say there are 18 rafters, and to make each rafter, we actually need 2 of those pieces of wood that he just priced, right?
Got it.
So we would need a total of 36 of those. So that'd be 36 times 29. That is just the wood for just the rafters. Now you also need a couple of you need a bunch of posts and beams on those posts as well. So
29. Do you need a calculator?
Off the top of my head, I have 36, 600.
He's very fast. I have to
$800. I don't know. I don't have a calculator on me, but $700 or $800, something like that. That's just for the rafters, remember.
Wait, how many was that?
36 times 29.
36 times 29.
Holy crap, I was way off.
1,044.
Okay, I was way off. Sorry.
And I thought you were
I was good at math.
Jim says get Home Depot to sponsor the bill. I don't think they would.
Now, of course, remember, I'd be ordering more than that, of course. So we would go to their bid desk, and we would get a little bit of a discount.
Is that only a little portion of
that is
the
just
material?
A portion.
Yeah.
We could go start a GoFundMe. Mom, fund me, Mom.
Someone go fund us.
So yeah, that's $1,000 just for the pieces of the rafters right there. So. And again, unfortunately, because I didn't get a number really on the trusses, and I don't know what that number could become in 3 months, right? That's another advantage to this method is I control when I buy. Whereas with the trusses, when it's ready, and they charge me what they charge me.
You control.
So even if they give me within reason. I mean, I could go buy them today if I wanted. Now they might start to warp. I will buy them as close to the time I would use them. But I could actually maybe use them fairly soon because, again, like Doug pointed out, which I hadn't taken the time to process this. I hadn't really thought about kind of swapping the whole process here, meaning the walls wouldn't come first. The roof, the posts, and then the roof. I would build the carport structure. So essentially, I'd be building it now, which means I could go buy that lumber almost immediately, right, and start building those things.
Did you see what
I wouldn't have to wait until after the walls. I funded you for years. I missed that. That's a good one. Good one, Mom.
Yeah, I think that. Could you at least get a quote for how much all of that? You have a sheet.
Bill just threw it out. Yes, sure.
Permission to speak.
Sure, yes. Yeah.
You have a sheet for all of the materials.
It's not the same material. It's different material. It's different sizes. The numbers might be similar, but actually they wouldn't. They'd be a little different. I see what you're saying. It's not the same stuff. It's different stuff.
I know, but you could use that just for to get a ballpark figure. You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to use
quite a bit different
purlins like you did in there.
No, I wouldn't. So all right. Anyway, I do want to throw another thing out. I noticed this time has flown by, and I know I've been talking the whole time.
32. Yes, you have been talking a lot. That's
again,
okay though.
Let's build this house, but don't bore me. I have one more thing to ask opinions on, and again, this might be crazy, but I'll say that it was Doug's idea. Doug threw something out that I had not considered, and I don't know if it's crazy or not. So Doug was over here today, and we were talking about this, and we're standing right under the carport as we're talking about it. And I was bouncing this stuff off of him, and like I said, he gave me some stuff that I hadn't thought about. But one of the things he said was, we talked about the roof and we talked about insulation and all these things, and he said, what if you built the roof the same way? So if you think about the carport, it's crazy. Is it possible on a home now, right? A home that you're going to live in. Is it crazy to think that you could build the roof with just like I built the carport roof? So rafters, so posts that support beams, beams support rafters, rafters hold purlins, and purlins hold a metal roof. Notice what I left out. for most people who have built a roof on a home. I left out sheeting, which is quite expensive right now, by the way. So Doug said, what if you didn't sheet it? What if you did purlins? And of course, the obvious things, would be sound and stuff like that. But then he said, well, you're going to insulate it, right? So, I mean, is this insane?
Wait a minute.
Would it be possible to not sheet that roof? I mean, obviously it would be a huge cost savings, but is that a bad idea?
That is not sheeted, right?
Exactly. He's saying, what if you did it like that? But if you knew you were going to spray foam is going to give you sound dampening, and it's going to give you, thanks, Bill. Says talk to Moses. Okay. So you should get sound dampening, and you should get, he said, I hadn't thought of it this way, but I said there's more potential for leak when you do this, right? As opposed to sheeting it. He said you should also get moisture protection, leak protection. The plywood we used for was 26 a sheet. It's now 60 a sheet. Yeah. So when he said that, I thought that would be fantastic, right? Because I can't remember how many sheets of, I didn't use OSB for that, or plywood, but it would be expensive, obviously. Let's say it's $60 a sheet and I need to cover that square footage. It's a lot, right? I don't know the exact number of pieces I would need up there, but it's a lot of money. If I could cut that out, and if I put that extra money into, so I noticed Bill said with closed cell, you might be able to get away with it. I believe closed cell is a little more expensive, but if I trade it out, okay, I'm not going to put the money into sheeting, but I'm going to put the money into closed cell foam. Is that actually something to consider? Bill's saying consider. I mean, again, this just came up literally a couple of hours ago, so I haven't had time to really process it. I just had an idea,
but I know that there's a lot of places that they tear down old places that maybe could you just find some scrap wood and put over the top of it?
This is what I deal with.
Scrap wood.
I think
Craigslist.
When I mentioned
free scrap
when I was going through these options, Pam told me that we should drive down the road and basically pick up tree branches off the side of the road and build with them.
Logs. I said, let's go get some logs.
Then she said, take them to Home Depot and have them cut them. And I said, Home Depot isn't a mill at their. And she said, take them to a mill. And I said, so this is. Closed cell foam is more moisture resistant. I just throw ideas
out there. I'm not.
Thanks for your input, Bill. I really appreciate it. Like a lot of this is just that it's so new to me that I haven't really had a chance to kind of take it in, and I need to look a lot of this stuff up, obviously, but I haven't really had the chance. My head was spinning for the last 24 hours, basically, and Doug just threw out some of these things literally in a conversation we just had a couple of hours ago. So it's pretty new, but stronger corners, maybe. So interesting, right? Interesting possibilities. And here we are almost an hour in already.
Wow.
So well, that flew by. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. Thanks for the input. I really do appreciate it. A lot of times I don't like to, I guess I did get a chance to think about it a little bit. I don't like to throw stuff out to you guys and say, I haven't thought about this at all. Tell me what I do. I like to have an idea already, and I'll see how that kind of matches up with what people give me. Coming into the night, I didn't have a whole lot really to go on, so I apologize that I went into this pretty cold, but that was kind of caused by the situation. So
that's okay. Yeah. It's called brainstorming.
We got time for one song.
Brainstorming.
Jim, you're gonna have to go to karaoke with us, but you can make the drive some night.
Thanks, Shirley.
We'll do it eventually.
We got time for one song?
So I will say this.
Brian won't do it. I have tried.
I won't do it.
He just won't. He says that's what my channel is about.
So Bill is right. Bill knows me a little bit by this point. He's right, and anyone else out there who knows me would probably agree. The worst thing I could do at this point probably is to put things on hold, because that would be a disaster. I would start to way overthink things. I've grown a little bit in this process. I've gotten better at pushing forward, even though I know I'm moving at a snail's pace. But for me, this is flying by the seat of my pants, right? If you knew me, you'd know that this is crazy for me, right?
That's right.
So I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. So I am going to make that be the most important thing, is that I keep moving forward. So Bill's right about that. That is, I do need to keep moving. But I'm starting to embrace the idea of kind of the post and beam. I won't say I've chosen it, but I'm starting to embrace it. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there and see if anybody said, no, you're a fool, don't do that.
Now I'm going to have to pressure
and
him.
it brings up a lot of other questions, obviously, like the roof and stuff like that.
Now I have to pressure you to make a decision.
So, but that's where we're at. One last quote from Zig Ziglar. Don't tell other people your problems. 90% don't care. 10% are glad you've got them. Nice.
I like Pam when she's drinking.
So, yeah, unfortunately, us being on YouTube, this is what we do. We tell everybody our problem. I'm sharing and asking for input, but
he's afraid we're going to get demonetized.
I'm not going to sing
something.
I'm afraid of the copyright issues that might exist.
And my channel,
maybe I'm crazy, but I don't like it. And not that we're making millions off of YouTube, but I'd hate for YouTube to kind of shut us down because we did something we weren't supposed to do.
We need every cent.
It scares me. So we're not going to do that, unfortunately. But when we do karaoke in the real world again someday, anybody who's close enough and is willing to come will be welcome. And we still can potentially use, I don't mind if we sacrifice Pam's channel. Again, it probably wouldn't get us in any trouble, but it worries me. I don't know. So, of course, if we did an original, Jim, that wouldn't be an issue. Good point.
Oh,
touche, sir.
I have to write a song and
so
in the shadow.
Anyway,
shadow.
we're pushing our hour. We're pushing over our hour.
Is that shallow? Is he trying to say
he
shallow?
He might mean shallow.
In the shadow. We'll change the word to shallow and make it our own and call it in
there
the
you
shadow.
Go. There you go. Maybe he did that on purpose. So I appreciate everybody listening to me.
Common Man
did you just get here, Tom? You missed it all.
We're leaving, Tom.
You missed it all. I appreciate you guys listening to me ramble a little bit, but this is the thought process I think I had to go through, and again, unfortunately for you got it really fresh.
And so, I'm sorry that I don't talk more or know more, but he knows more than I do.
And for those of you that know Pam, you realize that I can't just be quiet and turn it over to her, because who knows where we'd end up. The wheels would come off real fast.
Wait a minute. I mean. Now I have been cranking out the paintings, so it's not like I'm sitting around doing nothing.
I didn't say that.
I just wanted to say that in case anyone was thinking that I'm just sitting around staring into space.
Are you able to sleep through the night? She doesn't. Neither one of us, sadly, sleeps through the night very well anymore. That is one thing.
Rarely.
I don't blame a lot of things on age, but in my slightly older age, I don't sleep as well as I used to sleep like a baby. I do not anymore. I wake up multiple times, and she does too. And it's not just because she naps half the day. It's not just because of daytime naps. So
I love them. Oh, thank you.
Oh, we're funny, all right.
So I only sleep through the night.
Thanks, Bill.
If I take a sleeping pill, but if I take a sleeping pill, then it affects me so much. Like I'll be sleepy.
She's asleep for 2 days. Yeah. So.
But they do make me sleep through the night, and I cut them in half.
Thanks, Omega Royal.
Thank you. I'm so sensitive. Because that's just me.
We'll cut it off. We're at 7. Thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback. Y'all. I do appreciate that as well, and I am taking it in, and I think you guys have helped me. I feel like I am pretty close to a choice. It's not 100% made, but I'm leaning a direction for sure. So thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody stopping in, and we're still working on that video transition. I promise we're going to get better at this. So hang in there. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.